So the AIC is Australia's National Centre on Crime and Criminal Justice, a knowledge centre if you like. Our aim is to promote justice and reduce crime by undertaking criminological research and by communicating the results of that research. And that's an important element. Doing good research is important, but if no one gets to hear about it, not that useful. And we very much have a focus on trying to make our work useful and make sure it gets taken up in some sense by governments, by policing agencies, by justice departments, other sectors as well, which can be influenced by our work, such as health, education, mental health concerns in particular are one area where you might hear a bit about today. So our objectives are to maintain relevance as a key centre for criminological research for government, for law enforcement and other agencies, and to sort of conduct and disseminate quality primary and secondary over-the-horizon research. So pretty much we're a research agency, but we also have a very applied focus because we very much aim to influence things as much as we can, and pretty much at the current time as well as into the future. We've been going for 40 years. We developed and started running in 1973. We're what's called a statutory independent agency, so we're funded by government, we were set up by government, but in essence we have quite a degree of independence from the main government business so that we can do work objectively and also meet the needs of the sector, not just for the Commonwealth Government but also for our state territory governments, for academia and for the community as a whole. Apart from doing research, we also auspice a number of research grants programs. The Criminology Research Grants Program, which is quite a lot of eminence in the sector for providing researchers outside the AIC with access to grants money. We also run the Australian Crime and Violence Prevention Awards, which for 20 years have been highlighting good community-based crime prevention work by police agencies and also by members of the community. And we also auspice the National Drug Law Enforcement Research Fund, which is, as it sounds, a research fund designed to provide work around the alcohol drugs area with a law enforcement focus. So we do a fair bit, that you'll sort of see. There's about 50 of us at the moment, of which about 60%, about 30 of us are research staff. We have other staff who are involved in corporate services, you know, sort of managing the cash, doing the accounts. We have a lot of accountability as part of government, so we do a lot of paperwork. But we also have a really good library team, a communications team as well, and you'll meet a number of those people, if you haven't already, over the course of the day. So yeah, but mainly our focus is research, as you'd expect. Our budget's actually quite modest. It's about 5.3, 5.4 million a year, which we get from the Commonwealth Government, but we also supplement that by undertaking work for Commonwealth and state territory agencies on a fee-for-service basis. In other words, we also contract out our services to key government agencies as well. Often police or justice departments, but sometimes health, sometimes alcohol drugs services, sometimes local government and their community-based crime prevention sort of operations. So we get around a bit, as you'll see from some of the slides I'm going to show you. So yeah, we do a lot of contracted research. We also work a lot with our academic colleagues, so the university sector, which is well represented here today with a couple of lecturers, and also some unis now actually bring sort of small groups of students each year to the student forum, which is a great thing. So we're trying to sort of get the message out there and what we're doing, but it also helps us build our partnerships with the unis, which is really important. So we work differently to unis in a lot of ways, but we also have a similar goal, end of the day, doing quality research and getting good quality outcomes that impact on the sector. So in terms of our research program, we do a couple of key things. Firstly, we monitor trends in crime and criminal justice, and that's particularly through a number of national monitoring programs that we run. Deaths in Custody monitoring program, a national homicide monitoring program. We do one on armed robbery. And we also run Drug Use Monitoring Australia, which you'll hear a lot about today, which is essentially interviewing police detainees in watch houses in a number of sites across the country and sort of getting their perspectives on a number of issues, but you'll hear a lot more about that later. And then we do a whole range of primary and secondary research projects, one-offs if you like, where we sort of pick up a topic and start playing with it for a while. And it might be things like evaluating a criminal justice response, like a court system, or police response to mentally ill persons, or it might be something like performance measurement of a particular new project, or it might be more purist research like identifying and trying to understand better forced marriage in a trafficking and slavery context. So we do a whole range of things to try and identify what are new and emerging trends in crime, to build knowledge of what offending's happening, what victimisation's happening, and to build an evidence base of effective crime prevention and interdiction approaches. And how do we get our research going? Well, essentially I make that decision. That's one of my sort of privileges, but to do so we take advice from a whole range of people. We talk to our academic colleagues, we read the literature as well, and we try and pick things that are going to be useful for the sector. I take advice from the Minister and the Commonwealth Government and the Attorney General's Department. We also have a Criminology Research Advisory Council, which also provides me with strategic advice on what they think are important for the sector. And that group's made up of either Directors General of the Justice Departments or their deputies. So they have a fairly good idea of what's going on in their sectors and what they need to know. And basically then we make these decisions around where we can get funds, or if we actually have funds, what our staff expertise is, what our resources are available to devote to certain projects, and taking all that into account, we make up a research plan each year, which I'll show you a little of what we've been doing. And generally what we try and do is we try and undertake or incorporate, I guess, three main things. We try and look at undertaking longer term strategic research on new and emerging issues or key issues. We try and also respond to short-term demands. Often we'll get a query from a government agency or from a stakeholder saying, look, I need to know something about this in the next 6 months or the next year. Is there anything you guys can do in that period of time to help us tease out what the issue is we're facing, or to help us work out that our response to that issue, which might be a crime prevention program, is actually doing some good. So we try and do those sorts of things, and they're usually fairly short. But we've also got to provide really timely advice to government and to our key stakeholders. So one of our roles isn't just doing primary and secondary research, it's actually synthesis of research, giving advice on what we think works and what we think's going on. So a police department may come to us in confidence and say, look, we've got an issue with child exploitation material, which used to be called child porn. We're trying to get a handle on the size of the problem nationally. We have our own views. Can you guys tell us what you think's happening and what seems to be working overseas? I need to have this information by tomorrow. And we'll do some of that too, and we'll give advice as to what we know seems to be going on at that particular point in time. So that's an important role for us, actually influencing things by giving advice in a timely fashion. We generally have 6 main research priorities or strategic research priorities that we use, and these don't change that much year to year. They're sort of our broad-based areas that we tend to play around in. And as you might expect, I think looking at that list, they're not that unusual for a criminology organisation: violent crime, crime in vulnerable communities, transnational and organised crime, illicit substances and substance misuse, criminal justice system responses, and crime prevention. And I'll talk a bit about each of these and what we're doing there. So they're the things we sort of broadly try and focus on, but that allows us a lot of scope to do a whole range of things each year. So basically, under our current research themes, under violent crime, some of the things we're looking at now is our ongoing national homicide monitoring project. We do quite a lot of work looking at that. We're interested in violence and child abuse in Indigenous communities. Intimate partner homicide is an area we're focusing on right now, and that may change next year. We also are looking at the characteristics of domestic violence offenders. We're doing some work in Tasmania, looking at Safe at Home, it's called, a new domestic violence response program, and trying to identify more about those who commit domestic violence and how we can better interdict that or prevent that behaviour. And then we also have an armed robbery monitoring program as well. So that's some of the stuff we're sort of looking at now. Vulnerable communities, essentially what we're looking at there, as you might imagine, are Indigenous people and Indigenous communities. I'm sure you know this, that our Indigenous people are well and truly overrepresented as both the victims and offenders in crime in Australia. That hasn't improved in the last 20 years, despite a Royal Commission into Death in Aboriginal Custody, which very clearly highlighted the main issue was that Aboriginal people were coming into contact with the criminal justice system and being incarcerated. Hasn't improved, it's got worse. So we're pretty much failing there, so that's an ongoing issue of concern for us. We're also interested in migrant populations transitioning to Australia, issues around how they are protected from crime, how they engage with the criminal justice system, and also their involvement in crime. And we're also interested in youth, of course. As we probably all know that most young people don't engage in criminal behaviour. Those that do, most of them grow out of it very, very quickly. And it's only a small hardcore group that goes on to commit multiple offences and sort of develop a trajectory or pathway into the criminal justice system. But those that do are a key cohort of those who go on to commit adult offences and end up in the criminal justice system in a fairly significant way. So we want to know that pathway. We want to divert young people away from crime, but we also want to understand why young people are committing crimes, the nature of the crimes, and how we can prevent them better. More recently, we've been looking at countering violent extremism as well as an area of interest, which obviously is fairly topical right now. Transnational crime and organised crime, there's probably three main areas we focus on here. Various aspects of financial crime, so fraud, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, identity theft, those sorts of things. The new tap and go credit cards, for example, is an area we'll probably end up getting involved in the next couple of years. We look at high-tech and electronic crime, so cybercrime, if you want to call it that, so things like anything from child exploitation and child grooming through to scams, cloud computing risks, those sorts of things. And we're also interested in human trafficking and slavery. We've had an ongoing research program in that area which has done some really good work identifying some of the risks for Australia as a destination country for those who are trafficked or exploited for their labour or in a sexual sense or in a whole range of other ways as well. We also have interest in things like environmental crime and public sector corruption as well, which are sort of like elements of that transnational organised crime program. Not surprisingly, a big focus on illicit substances and substance misuse, so drugs and alcohol. Alcohol-fueled violence, the rise of particular types of illicit drugs and their impact on society, AIC being a classic at the moment. We're doing some work with a Victorian government inquiry, writing a very large report looking at issues around ice, methamphetamine at the moment for the community and around violence. We have the GEMA program, which you'll hear a lot more about, I said, later today. We also look at things like program effectiveness for treatment for drug disorders. We do a lot of work on cannabis and how we can, if you like, you can build a bridge between the criminal justice response to cannabis and the health sector response and education sector responses to cannabis. So yeah, we get into that sort of stuff. Criminal justice system responses are basically how do the police, the courts and corrections work? What can we do to improve their services and make the most of their responses and strategies? So we do a whole range of evaluation work and working with the agencies to try and work out what they're doing to improve their services, ranging from cost-benefit studies of particular programs, risk assessment tools, and also specialist evaluations. We also have a couple of monitoring programs in that area as well, the main one being deaths in custody, which is a very important program. We have a whole lot of work on crime prevention. We have a unit called Crime Prevention Assist, which is an education, research and training unit, which has its own website within the AIC's website. And basically it's a resource centre for those who are looking to prevent crime at local communities, to help them do a better job, to give them resources to help them evaluate their work, to help them select approaches that might work in their community. And we do research that's attached to this unit, evaluation research, education and training, to try and essentially work at local levels at improving the response to crime, because crime is a local problem in the sense that it affects you locally, it affects your community, and we try and work at that level as well. It's where a lot of effective work happens. So Crime Prevention Assist does a whole range of things. Capacity building, as I said, it does education and training. We've done a lot of work in Victoria recently with local government associations and also in the City of Sydney with our local government there. We're also trying to provide an online support community for professionals, so it doesn't matter where you're located in the country, you can access our stuff and also engage with your peers, and that's a work in progress. And we're also interested in things like CCTV and CCTV use. A lot of evaluation stuff, as you might expect, as I mentioned before. And we also, as I said, we create how-to manuals on certain types of crime and how you can best respond to certain types of crime, things like bushfire, arson, we're interested in preventing that. CCTV, what makes a good CCTV system, and also what works in crime for local governments to take advantage of. This is actually, you won't be able to read these slides, so don't worry, they'll be on the website. There's 4 slides coming. This basically summarises our current work program for the year as of 30 June. We're usually between 30 and 50 projects each year, which is a hell of a lot for 30 research staff, but there you go. And we do them pretty well, I think. So we've always got about 30 to 50 things on the go, and these are actually organised according to our main themes, and they cover firstly our crime monitoring programs, other core funded work, which is work we fund ourselves. There's a whole range of projects there. And I won't go through these now because you can read them later at your leisure. We also do a hell of a lot of the contracted work. I said about $1 to $2 million a year is contracted by other agencies. A whole range of agencies, Victorian Department of Human Services, Commonwealth Attorney General's Department, who else? South Australian Government sometimes, WA Government, you name it, we probably work with them, Australian Federal Police. We get around, and these often change quite rapidly. We're doing some work with NT Department of Corrections around a risk assessment tool for Indigenous offenders, for example. So That's continuing our contracted research. We're doing an amazing piece of work now, or a series of pieces of work with the criminal justice system around the CrimTrack agency and their national databases around firearms, identification, fingerprints, and also a new cybercrime reporting database they're setting up nationally, and trying to help them to work out, does this thing work? What does it do? How do people use it? Do police like using it? What's its benefit? Because a huge amount of money goes into these things, so we're really excited by that. So that very, very quickly is what we're doing right now. As I said at the start, it's not just about research, it's about dissemination, it's about getting materials out there. How do we do that? We have a great library. We have probably the best library in the country for criminological work, and you'll hear about that at lunchtime if you want to go across the library, which is around the corner, and talk to them about what we offer. So firstly, all our stuff that we have available we put on Cinch, which is an online database which I'm sure you're aware of, and your libraries would certainly be aware of at the university. We put out a series of peer-reviewed flagship publications, our Trends and Issues in Criminal Justice, and our Research and Public Policy series. We put out crime monitoring reports and a whole range of grey literature or non-peer-reviewed work as well, which vary from research reports we've done under contract to bulletins, newsletters, analyses, short-term pieces, all sorts of stuff. Anything we do that's made available publicly you'll find on our website, and they're free downloads. Yeah. So we put out as much as we can. We put out, this year it's going to be about 30 peer-reviewed papers and probably another 20 to 30 non-peer-reviewed materials coming out as well, which is pretty good. We have our website, of course, which is very popular. Obviously, I encourage you to go and check that out. And we've embraced Web 2, and we have our own YouTube channel, Criminology TV, where you'll find videos from today's marvellous performance. We have quite a lot of videos up there, and I'll show you a slide on that in a minute. Most of our key lectures, our plenary sessions in our conferences and things like this, we try and videotape so people can get access to it out of session. We also run fairly active Facebook, Twitter and RSS feeds. We have a smartphone app in development, and we also provide free email alerts that will tell you what we're doing. A new publication comes out, we'll tell you about it. You can get access via a free email alert. So if you aren't already signed up, please make sure you ask the library to sign you up while you're here. So there's our Criminology TV site and our Facebook feed. Just a still shot. Yeah, there's about 90 videos, I think, available now for Criminology TV, which is pretty good, I think. Very popular, becoming more popular, so you might want to check that out if you're looking at particular topics. Or, for example, if you can't make one of our occasional seminars, which we run usually about once a month, it's an hour-long lecture. If you can't make it because you're in Dubbo or somewhere, or Perth, well, go online, you can check it out. Usually it's up within about a month after the presentation because we have to actually edit them first. We have a couple of online data tools you can play with, Facts and Figures, which is a crime stats compendium, and also some work on Duma. We also run a lot of conferences. These are the conferences we're running in the next year. Crime Prevention and Communities was held in Melbourne about 3 weeks ago. It went really well. Next year we've got 3 main conferences. We've got the ACAN 2015, the Child Abuse Conference we're running in Auckland, New Zealand. We have the 15th International Symposium on World Society of Victimology in Perth in June or July. Where is it? July, 5 to 9. And we're also running our second Australasian Juvenile Justice or Youth Justice Conference in Brisbane in November next year. We usually have student rates. If you're interested in coming along, keep your eye out on our events page. And again, you'll find alerts to this sort of thing as well if you want to sign up to them. So that's very, very quickly what we're doing right now. The place is pretty dynamic. It sort of changes pretty rapidly. We've got a lot of work on. We do a lot of work, I think, very well, and we're certainly well respected for it. And what we're going to hope to do for the rest of today is sort of give you a taste of some of the stuff we're doing. It won't be a taste of all we're doing by any means, but some of the stuff. At the end is a session on how you might work at the AIC, what it's like working at the AIC with some of our staff, and you can sort of grill them on how they find the place. Of course, we'll have our spies in the room, so if they say anything negative, they'll be sacked, but that's their problem. But we do actually often use these events to pick up staff. We have a staff recruitment process. In fact, we'll be hiring research officers in the next few weeks. If you're interested in applying for jobs at the AIC, there's a recruitment email you can apply to. You can also put up expressions of interest saying, look, I'm interested in a job at some point. This is my background with a full CV and what you think you offer. And we're happy to take that onto our books. So we are searching for research officers now. So if you're interested and you've finished your studies or just about finished, feel free to put an expression of interest up. If you're finishing in 6 months, you might want to let us know that too, because you never know, we might actually tap you on the shoulder at some point. a lot of our staff come through these sorts of processes rather than formal recruitment, which we run as well. We also run internships every year. We have a formal process until this last year whereby we take 4 or 5 interns over the January-February period each year, and you apply in February the previous year. That's been extremely popular. You usually get about 80 to 100 applications for the 4 spots. This year we've actually been a bit more flexible. If your university is offering or asking you to do placements as part of your degree and you want to try and do a placement with us, get them to contact us and see what the options might be. Because we're not necessarily against the idea of having people coming in during the year and working with us for a month or 6 weeks, full-time or part-time. We're up for that if we can actually make it work, and it will actually be useful for the student as well. So again, the recruitment at aic.gov.au email will sort of give you information, and you can check out our website. But if you're interested, have a chat with our staff in the breaks. Come along to the session this afternoon and ask questions. But you can also just contact us out of session as well.